It is 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday and your phone buzzes on the nightstand. You are exhausted. Your eyes are stinging from the day's blue light, but you see the name on the screen and you already know. They've had another fight with their partner or they're spiraling about their career again. You sigh, sit up, and spend the next hour unraveling their drama while your own needs sit cold in the dark. Do you ever feel like you are a 24-hour convenience store for everyone else's crisis? Here's what nobody tells you. Being the therapist friend isn't a personality trait you were born with. It's a role you were drafted into before you were old enough to consent. Here's what's actually happening. You are operating out of a mechanism called emotional hypervigilance. Your brain has been conditioned to believe that your primary value lies in your ability to stabilize other people's chaos. You aren't just being a good listener. You're performing a high-stakes balancing act to keep the emotional environment safe so you can finally relax. Except you never actually get to the relaxation part. To understand why your brain does this, we have to look at the work of Salvador Minuchin, a pioneer in family systems therapy who studied parentification. This happens when the traditional roles between a child and a parent are flipped upside down. Perhaps you had a parent who was emotionally fragile, struggled with addiction, or was simply so overwhelmed by life that they turned to you for comfort. You became an unpaid intern in the Department of Adult Emotions before you even hit puberty. Well, because your survival depended on their stability, your brain learned to prioritize their heartbeat over your own. It's like being forced to build a bridge for others while you are still standing on a sinking island. You learned to engineer safety for everyone else because no one was engineering it for you. There is also a biological component involving your mirror neurons, a concept famously explored by neuroscientist Giacomo Rizzolatti at the University of Parma. These are specialized cells in your brain that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else doing it. For the therapist friend, these neurons are often dialed up to an extreme frequency. You don't just hear about your friend's heartbreak. You actually feel the physical ache in your own chest as if it were happening to you. It is a phenomenon called emotional contagion. You are like a human tuning fork that can't help but vibrate at the same frequency as the person standing next to you. This makes helping feel less like a choice and more like a desperate need to stop your own reflected pain. If you can fix them, your own system can finally stop ringing. We also have to consider Sociometer theory, which was developed by Dr. Mark Leary at Duke University. He suggests that self-esteem isn't just a private feeling of liking yourself. It's actually an internal gauge that monitors how much you are valued by your social group. If your earliest experiences taught you that you were only wanted when you were being useful, your sociometer became calibrated to service. You began to pay what I call an existence tax. This is the subconscious belief that you have to provide a service, like emotional coaching or crisis management, just to earn your spot in the room. You aren't relaxing in your friendships because you're too busy checking the receipt to see if you've done enough to stay. It's an exhausting way to live, isn't it? Finally, there is the mechanism of the overfunctioner, a concept rooted in Bowen family systems theory. Dr. Harriet Lerner has written extensively about how in any high-stress system, one person will inevitably step up to carry the emotional weight that others are dropping. When your friends or family underfunction by being messy, impulsive, or dramatic, your brain automatically clicks into overfunction mode. You become the one who organizes the group chat, remembers the birthdays, and checks in after the breakup. It's a bit like being the only person in a house who notices the smoke and refuses to leave until everyone else is outside. The problem is that the more you overfunction, the more it allows everyone else to stay in their mess. You have become the emotional oxygen mask for people who have forgotten how to breathe on their own. Notice how this manifests in your adult life when you're out on a first date or starting a new job. Think about the last time you met someone new and within 20 minutes they were telling you about their deepest childhood traumas. This is why you attract people who feel like projects. You have a vibe that signals you are a safe harbor, but a harbor is meant to be a temporary stop, not a permanent residence. Notice how you feel a strange sense of guilt when you have a good day, but your friend is struggling. You might even find yourself downplaying your own success just so they don't feel less than. You've become so good at being the person who holds the flashlight that you've forgotten what it feels like to stand in the light yourself. This shows up at work when you become the unofficial office counselor who hears everyone's complaints about the boss. You end up carrying the stress of 5 different departments while your own tasks sit untouched. In your romantic life, you might find yourself in the role of the fixer, falling for people who have so much potential, if only they could get their act together. This is a childhood pattern still running on a loop. You're trying to win the game you lost as a kid, the game of finally being enough to make a suffering person happy. This is why you feel so incredibly lonely, even when you're surrounded by people who love you. They love what you do for them, but do they actually know who you are when you aren't helping? There is a shadow side to this kindness that we have to be honest about. When you spend all your time being the therapist friend, you are actually avoiding your own inner life. It is much easier to analyze someone else's messy divorce than it is to look at your own terrifying emptiness. Being a helper can be a very sophisticated form of deflection. You stay busy so you don't have to feel. There is a very thin line between being a supportive friend and being an emotional martyr who uses other people's problems to stay distracted from their own. Are you actually that selfless, or are you just afraid of what happens when the room goes quiet and no one needs you? The real shift happens when you realize that you aren't a lighthouse. A lighthouse is a stationary object that exists only to keep others from crashing. It doesn't have a life of its own. You are a person, and you are allowed to be inconvenient. You don't have to pay a tax to exist in your friendships. Real intimacy isn't built on how much you can fix. It's built on how much you can be seen. You have to learn to let the silence sit there sometimes. You have to learn that if you stop performing the role of therapist, the people who truly love you will still be standing there. They might even be happy to hold the flashlight for you for a change. Next time that phone buzzes late at night, I want you to check in with your own heart before you check in with theirs. Imagine your energy as a literal bank account. Are you making a withdrawal from your own health just to fund someone else's repeat drama? You are allowed to close the shop for the night. You are allowed to say, I love you, but I don't have the capacity for this right now. What would happen if you were just average for a week? No fixing, no advice, no emotional labor. Tell me in the comments, who would you be if you weren't the strong one for everyone else? Next, we're going to talk about the high-functioning anxiety that usually drives this behavior and why your brain thinks that if you stop worrying for 5 seconds, the whole world will come apart.